I'm really trying to actually help you get. My mom was a single mom. You're a single mom. And I understand what you're doing right now. You're kind of keeping low and something that blows over. But I want to tell you, like, there's certain things in motion right now. This is not going away anytime soon.
Well, happy Remembrance Day, folks. Hope you were able to take time to remember the fallen and be able to enjoy a ceremony near you today. Or if you live in a place like Ontario, well, hope work was okay for you today. I know this day is taken very seriously in Atlantic Canada, where we actually get a day off to go do those things, but I know it's not the same everywhere else. But alas, here we are. Hope you've had a good Remembrance Day. I want to take this time today to discuss some things happening in our country, happening in our political climate, and also happening just in our institutions. Things that are going on that really has kind of, struck me. It's going to be a bit of news day to day, but as well as more of like, hey, let's think about this. I've seen more stories come to the surface, especially seeing the war of narratives that we've seen in front of us, especially around the floor crossing, this, that, the other, and not really discussing the budget. There's obviously more stories that have taken place that have come out that I'm like, whoa, the rot in our institutions needs to be addressed. And sometimes that rot also includes places that I currently operate in. And I think it's incumbent upon me to be open and honest and be absolutely gut level transparent with you as the audience of what you are currently seeing. Politics in our country, politics in the Western Hemisphere at this point in time, it's no secret to you, it's fairly corrupt. There is a culture war that's happening before us. There's a war for power among us that we have not seen growing up. We have not seen up until this portion of our lives where it's so in your face that clearly there's something trying to take us over, and they also have the means of communication to try and convince you to side with them. It is very fascinating. But the thing that you really want to keep an eye out on is the fact that you can't trust anybody. You can't trust the politician, your favorite politician. You can't trust your favorite commentator. You can't trust your favorite YouTuber. You can't trust anybody. You really do have to do your own research. Even if people have the most pure of motives, you can't take them at face value, at least not in a climate that we are currently experiencing. For example, the story that we all know so well, that of Mr. Chris D'Entremont, who just a handful of months ago, even a handful of weeks ago, was speaking ill of Mark Carney and the Liberal Party and how they are not the ones to lead Canada forward, and that the Conservative Party is the one that people have voted for. That's the party that people really think that can bring change to Canada. But then on Budget Day, all that changed, and now all of his rhetoric is Conservatives bad, Poilievre's a bad leader, he's lost control of the party, and even saying things such as this. After D'Entremont's musings over a possible defection were reported by Politico on Tuesday, the MP says Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer and Party Whip Chris Workington barged into his office, pushed open the door, almost knocking down his assistant, yelled at him about how much of a snake he was. Quote, "It really pushed me to the point where it's like, okay, I guess my decision's made for sure now," he said in an interview on CBC's Rosemary Barton Live that aired Sunday morning with guest host Catherine Cullen. Describing the negativity and beating up on someone else coming from Conservative leadership, D'Entremont said, "A lot of times I felt like I was a part of a frat house rather than a serious political party." The Conservative Party has denied D'Entremont's allegations. Again, someone who was so pro-conservative now saying, it's really just a frat house. It's not even a serious political party. How can you trust somebody like that? How can you really trust anybody to be real, to be honest, to be authentic when they speak so passionately one moment about one issue and then completely flip-flop when a salary's on the line, when a position's on the line, when influence is on the line, when notoriety is on the line? How can you simply trust people like that? It's not just with Chris D'Entremont. We saw this week with Nate Erskine-Smith of the Liberal Party. He was made a cabinet member by Trudeau before Trudeau had stepped down. So he was pretty excited about his cabinet position. And when Carney was running for Liberal leadership, everybody in the party knew, well, Carney's going to be the guy because, well, we all knew this was more of a coronation of a leader. And everyone in the party saw it, that they were all kissing the ring. Even Nate Erskine-Smith had this to say about Mr. Mark Carney. These were his exact words. "Serious leadership in a moment of crisis. My vote for the next leader will go to Mark Carney. He's serious and thoughtful. He's committed to economic and environmental sustainability." That was one quote. Another says he brings a wealth of experience, having helped Canada navigate the Great Recession and the UK manage through Brexit, which we had acknowledged that those were lies. He brings a wealth of experience, having helped Canada navigate the Great Recession and the UK manage through Brexit. With that experience, Mark is best placed to defend Canadian interests against the threat of tariffs. Another, he says, he's a strong contrast to Poilievre's cartoon slogans and shallow attacks, and he's the right leader to protect our progress and to build on it. Still another, he says, Canadians from across the political spectrum are looking for someone to vote for, rightly find the alternatives wanting, and see Carney someone with substance. And lastly, he said this, referring to Carney's focus as a leader. It says, for his commitment to public service, for meeting the moment in too many crises, for making space for reasonable disagreement and more independence, and for major progress in supporting families, climate action, reconciliation, and more. Nate Erskine-Smith was singing the praises of Mark Carney. Thought he was fantastic, amazing, electric. But how can we know that any of those things are true? As all of these quotes were all posted and pulled from Nate's website and blog posts. The internet is forever. And he said all that about Mark Carney. He said he was an amazing leader. Those are all direct quotes from Nate Erskine-Smith. And he even went as far as to help Mark Carney push his brand. As you remember, Mark Carney wasn't really known at all as a political figure, at least in the mainstream, when he put his name forward. Remember, he made his big announcement on American television with Mr. Colbert. Jon Stewart. It was on Jon Stewart, one of the two. So not a whole lot of people knew him. And then Nate Erskine-Smith gave his platform to him and did an hour-and-a-half interview, if you remember this.
Politics, but liberal politics, because right now he occupies the role of chair of an economic task force to the Liberal Party and Prime Minister, and he might well have a future in politics beyond that as well. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
I was going to make a joke about how you are the first guest we've had since the Prime Minister, and people can read into that as they like. But
and it glazes him a little bit. Had some fun talking some policy on this podcast. Really put his neck out to really show Mark Carney that he really likes him, that he thinks he's a transformative leader, that's going to do great things for Canada. Then, well, Mark Carney wins the election, and, well, this happens. Toronto MP says he feels disrespected after being dropped from cabinet. Beach's East York MP Nate Erskine-Smith says he wishes new cabinet well from outside looking in. He wasn't too stoked. He thought all the glazing and kissing of the ring would get him a cabinet position. And it didn't. Very similar to the likes of Chris D'Entremont, wasn't it? The fact that he wasn't backed for a speaker role and lost out in an election for that speaker role made him bitter, so he decided to stick the knife in Poilievre and the Conservatives' back the first chance he got. Just had to wait for the right time to do it. And then he made a deal with the devil. We've seen this now with Nate Erskine-Smith. Gets left out as a cabinet position. Then, a handful of days after the budget's announced, he releases this video.
Now to the bad, or more fairly, where expectations were set at a level that we failed to meet, including on the question of generational investments. First, stalled climate action. I don't want to be too dismissive here, as the Canadian Climate Institute rightly highlighted the importance of a strengthened industrial carbon price. But apart from that promise, there was nothing new. Yes, we are moving forward with strong methane rules and clean investment tax credits, and these are key pieces. But we are also cutting tree planting, moving away from an emissions cap, winding down greener homes, and the budget offers no new money for climate action. On housing, we've got the beginnings of Build Canada Homes, a tax cut for new home buyers, and some dollars for housing-enabling infrastructure that are important, but unfortunately very unlikely to move the needle on development charges to a degree we would like. It falls short of these specific promises in our platform, and it unfortunately falls well short of the wartime effort that many of us thought we'd deliver.
Sits there and tears up Mark Carney's budget and him falling well short of expectations of Canadians. Does a 4-minute video about this. Puts a minute in talking about the good parts and then spends 3 minutes tearing up the rest of the budget. He's still in the party, but he's a backbencher now. And the first chance he got, he threw that knife into Mark Carney's back. How can you trust people like that? How can you trust people that have integrity in politics? You simply cannot. As I said, even your favorite politicians, you have to take with a grain of salt, because this game is fickle and people will do crazy things and completely bend on their integrity or lack thereof for the first chance for notoriety, influence, money, what have you. We saw it with him, we see it with just Chris d'Entremont, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we see anything like this. But thanks for bearing with me for that first very long intro of what my point is. It's a fact that, yes, we can't trust those in politics. However, you also can't trust those who are talking to you. And I'm speaking about people like myself. Because we've seen a handful of times that I do get things wrong from time to time. And because people have challenged me, I've been able to correct it and make sure that was on the record. I can speak for myself that I do try my best to get things right. I do try my best to be honest. I do try my best to present you the information that you so need. However, I'm also not perfect, and I can mess up, and I can be caught up in my own biases at times because I can tend to be in all this stuff every day. I speak on this because yesterday, a former independent journalist, Lauren Southern, dropped a video for the first time in a year, a full hour and a half, talking about her experience with the tenant media fiasco, with them being funded by Russia and the CSIS going after her, House of Commons going after her. Canadian government was not too happy with her, as well as her American counterparts in the States. And all of that was her first time really addressing all that. And she really brought up these issues of structures of manipulation that have enveloped themselves into the internet space and as well as enveloped themselves into independent media. I know you're very well aware of it. We all know it. We all see it from time to time where you'll see creators just randomly change their tune on a topic. And then you find out later, oh, that person that knew that person who then gave money to this creator to get a specific narrative out. There's obviously the one that we all know is very obvious is when a journalist works for a place like the CTV, CBC, Global, who need to make sure they parrot talking points that go along the lines of the preferred narrative from that media organization. But then there's a third issue. Independent media is very fertile ground for people to be paid off because, well, you're independent. That can happen. And so it just takes a little bit of a lapse of integrity and a little bit of like, oh, but this is for my family. And just a little bit of reasoning to accept dirty money, to accept influence. Be like, okay, I'll just do it this once. So those two issues, right? But then there's a third one as well. And I direct it at you, the audience. Creators can be imprisoned to their own audience. People can be very, very susceptible to because you click the thumbnail. You click the title. You want to be told a specific thing. If you are told the opposite of what you want to hear, even though that might be the truth, it makes you less willing to click on the link. And that's just not because of you. That's just how these formulas and these algorithms are designed, is to make sure they only push you things that you like and want to see. And if you get things that you don't want to see, well, then you don't interact with the platform. It's all about clicks, likes, what have you. And so there's times where your favorite creators can end up getting caught up in making sure they tell you what you want to hear and not necessarily tell you the truth of what's going on, feeling the risk that you won't click to watch back. Right now, it's a little bit easier because, well, we have a government that is so corrupt, it's very easy to report on the truth. However, the day will come when the conservatives will be in power. Will you be ready to hear it? Or will you be hoping someone tells your itching ears what you want to hear? That is a question. But these are the three issues that we're really seeing with media in this space. I just want to be honest and completely transparent with you with where things are at, how things operate in this space, and to just always making sure you are at least just questioning. At least question. This is something even Jasmine and I, we align with and we agree with is we have things we're studying out. We have things that we're looking into. We bring it to you and we just share it with you. And you decide if it's true or not. You let us know. Are we off or are we on? I know I do my best to be accurate, but there's times I mess things up. That's why it's important in this new media space that you don't see me as the authority. See me as more of someone who informs you of what's going on, and then you check out the details for yourself. That is super key. The reason why I thought this was all interesting, and this has started to come to mind, obviously, as I said, Lauren Southern dropped a video yesterday about this, but a big part of that video was how CSIS was harassing her throughout this whole tenant media issue. Again, without getting too much into the weeds on this, tenant media was an entity that was being funded by Russia. The problem is this entity wasn't very forthcoming with who they were. They actually lied about who they were, and the creators didn't realize they were working and doing content for a channel that was being funded by Russia. And this was the issue. So it was like, oh, wow, all these creators are all Russian plants. They're all espousing Russian talking points. And you see that on social media today because of this very case, where any conservative puts out anything that is offensive to the left, well, they'll all automatically call you a Russian bot. We see this from our liberal MPs who dare say this. They yell this. Mark Gerritsen yelled this at Canada last year, and he got called out and had to do a formal apology because it was untrue. People are screwy around this stuff. They espouse falsehoods because you and I threaten their power. So you have stories like this where they'll take it and they'll run with it to push their narrative. They'll take that 5% of truth and blow it up in order to gain control over the population through fear and manipulation. So naturally, you had 3 Americans that were involved in this. You had 1 Canadian, that 1 Canadian being Lauren Southern. She was being harassed by CSIS, got summoned by the House of Commons. But for a good chunk of time, CSIS was tracking her and following her and trying to get her to flip, trying to get her to inform, trying to get her to say something she otherwise wouldn't have said and wasn't true. She put out a 7-minute clip. We're going to listen to 2 minutes of it here, of this CSIS agent walking with her, trying to convince her and giving her veiled threats to become a CSIS informant. And this, my friends, is how the system works. It's a greasy one, and it's tough to listen to, but here it is.
I think we can help you navigate through it. And again, in my opinion, just doing nothing is not going to get you in a better spot. It's going to be putting you at a significant disadvantage. Nothing might happen, okay? Like nothing, if they're like, oh, we don't have enough significant case against Southern, then nothing. But if they go, these guys are all saying negative things. Again, when you're in the courtroom, it's the perception. It's not what the truth is. And you're smart enough to know. I'm really trying to actually help you get. My mom was a single mom. You're a single mom. And I understand what you're doing right now. You're kind of keeping low and something that blows over. But I want to tell you, like, there's certain things in motion right now. This is not going away anytime soon. What is beneficial for you cooperating is pretty much self-preservation. Out of all the contributors and the founders, like all of them have talked to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person that has not is you, Lauren. Like the optics of it. Using, Southern did not cooperate. What I'm getting to, the point I'm getting to, is like, how much can you trust your other commentator that they are not cannibalizing each other, especially when the heat's turned up on them and they're pointing things. Let me back up to from our last meeting. A lot of people, especially my colleagues, they're like, all right, if she doesn't want to cooperate, and kind of beat her off to the wolves, just let her. I don't think you fully understand the picture of the consequences of not working together. You've been on the ground. Do you trust these people? You trust him, fool? Lauren?
They have nothing they could say. That's the thing.
Yeah, but what would be...
So you hear it there. I know you're a single mom. My mom was a single mom. If you could just play ball, things would be okay. Again, this was just 2 minutes of a 7-minute interaction she posted. This is the greasy games that are before us. And there is a lot of money and there's a lot of influence that people see with people on this platform that they are wanting to corrupt. And I want to fight against that every step of the way. But it is interesting to see how corrupt our institutions have become when they're essentially trying to entrap an independent journalist to be able to continue to push a specific narrative. Even so much as try to use a honeypot method, which is trying to essentially get into a relationship with a contact in order to pull information out. And Southern also called this one out later as well, which is wild to listen to.
Is there a dating scene here?
No.
Yeah. Is that average? It's like middle age and older.
It'd be very hard for me to date.
Well, yeah. I assume I see young people now, like 28. You know your profile for your Signal? Is that on your dating profile?
Like, I don't have a dating profile.
The one where you're like this on the tree?
In the tree? I don't have a dating profile.
Well, your profile.
No, my friend just took that photo of me a few weeks ago.
That looks like a dating profile
Oh, gosh.
picture. And he's got a lot of.
Maybe I should change that.
Again, just this weird interaction. And again, I want to make clear, because I think Lauren did a good job of clarifying this too. Not every CSIS agent is bad. Not every RCMP agent is bad. However, when it comes to high-profile, politically motivated cases, you have to be cautious with anyone you talk to from these institutions. And Lauren was right to be able to get a voice recording of this whole situation, because it gets weird really quickly. Because there was a directive from on top in terms of the political maneuvering that was happening. We saw Trudeau's government was really trying to clamp hard on Russia and try to make Russia a distraction so that they didn't look at the connections of the Liberal Party and China being together. It was all about Russia, Russia, Russia. We saw this in the media. We saw this happen in the House of Commons when they pulled Lauren Southern into committee to talk about this very issue. And Lauren just got to a point where she just had enough. This interaction she had with a couple of MPs in committee last year, if you don't remember, this was fascinating.
What is your stance on foreign interference in Canadian elections and political discourse? Do you believe there is a clear and present danger from foreign actors such as Russia? And if so, what responsibility do individuals like yourself bear in preventing the spread of foreign influence? Do you take
I was
any
a
responsibility?
commentator for a channel who had full control over the videos I made, and I ensured they were truthful. If you want to point to anything I've said that has been disinformation or aiding and
I'm
abetting...
actually asking what you believe. Do you believe there is a clear and present danger from foreign actors such as Russia? And if so, what responsibility do you believe the individuals like yourself and your platform aid in preventing the spread of foreign influence?
I think that it is rich that I am sat here and being asked what I have to do to stop foreign influence and foreign interference as a Canadian citizen. Well, we sit here with MPs like Jennifer O'Connell, who said boo-hoo to Conservatives who wanted actual elected politicians working with foreign governments to be exposed.
So I
am a regular Canadian.
So, sorry, I take it you don't take responsibility. I'm sorry, it's not your turn, Ms. O'Connell. I'm going to...
Obviously got a little spicy there, got a little heated. Suggest going and watching this whole thing because it was very fascinating to watch. Lauren rinsed all of them throughout the whole committee hearing. But this is how this all goes. This is what the goal of today's episode was, is to get you to question and get you to make sure you are skeptical of what you are seeing. Don't just trust everything that comes across your device, especially in the era of AI. You have to really be thoughtful and really have a solid understanding of what technology is doing, what people are doing, what narratives certain entities are trying to push. And I know anyone who watched the show has an understanding of that because, well, we've watched our government do it for the past several years, but it only can get worse. That we're seeing it at some points in the States is people shift, right? It was interesting how all the social media companies were very much on board with censoring right-wing individuals. Then when Trump got into power, all of a sudden Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, and others of these huge media giants all of a sudden became best friends with Donald Trump. And all of a sudden were huge advocates for free speech. And then you started seeing money get involved into independent media outlets in the States as well, trying to push specific narratives. It doesn't matter who's in power. Nothing, just because the technology has changed and the methods have changed, doesn't mean that what big corporations and big interests are trying to push has changed. As I said, here in Canada, well, all the money is with those who are in power. So it's very easy to be critical of this Liberal Party, very easy to be critical of the left. But I urge you just to keep an eye out for the day that comes when that switches. When Conservatives do take power, keep an eye out for the big money that enters into the space, trying to sway you one way or another. But anyways, enjoy your day. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.